Good evening, and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My co-host, the marvelous Daniel Marcus, first started Story Hour, over 5 years ago. And it's just been so much fun. We've been coming back pretty much every Wednesday ever since. And so, welcome back to those of you returning, and welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. As always, we have two writers reading their own work. Tonight's readers are Dee Holloway and Huang. If you're here on Zoom, feel free to join in on the handy text chat. If you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to enjoy this without any unnecessary socialization. That can be fun too. Um, so let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Our first reader tonight is going to be Dee Holloway. Dee Holloway is a library worker, writer, and proud Floridian in upstate New York. Her work has appeared in Mythic Circle, from Mythic Circle, Malarkey, Weird Punk Books, Pink Hydra, Queen of Swords Press, and more. See, that from is really important because it shows that there are actual volumes of her own work and not like her work appearing in a magazine. Prepositions, they're very challenging, but very important. She edits literary coverage for horror website Dismember. That's dis/member. I mean, the layers in that name alone. When not writing, she's slinging story times, sampling iced coffees, and reminding people that the South isn't red, it's gerrymandered. Her story collection, Something in the Trees, is on the long list for Santa Fe Writers Project's 2025 Literary Award. Congratulations on that. And welcome back, Dee. It's great to see you.
It's good to be here, Laura and Daniel. Thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure. So we'd love to know what you got for us tonight and if there are any content warnings that the more sensitive souls may need to know about.
Sure. I come bearing a pair of, we'll say, wonder tales. The first one is definitely a wonder tale in the mode of Paul Bunyan and so forth, but based on a real geological place close to where I live that I hiked recently and thought, I wonder why it's called this. So this might be why it's called that. We'll find out. No content warnings for this one. It's very family friendly, let's say.
All right.
The Wonder Tale of Vroman's Nose, being a settler's account of the geological oddity in Middleburg, New York, related to and recorded by Hedda Garrow of the St. Regis Mohawk tribe in 1952. Now, in the time that the Palatines of the Schoharie Valley treated with the Mohawk for farmland and logging rights, a good many young men thought to make their fortunes, find wives, and so forth, by distinguishing themselves in the neighborhood of Middleburg. The foremost of these was Peter Vroman. He came not of good family, as did farmers Willem ten Eyck and Matthew Wrexham, whose forebears had been aboard the Half Moon and the Mayflower. It was said if Peter Vroman had people, they had exposed him as a baby on the plain due to his ungainly feet and untenable appetite. He could neither sing a hymn on key nor compose a poem for his sweetheart, of which he pursued half a dozen. He knew only the lusty songs of logging men, having carried them over the border, the good wives supposed, from French Canada. But his height doubled that of any other young man, and the width of his shoulders that of an ice floe on the winter river. When his boots were on, he had to duck his head to avoid eagles' nests. His face's profile was so strongly carved and so broad it served for crows to roost on. Despite being plainly built for the lumber yard, Peter Vroman had ambitions to farm. When his first year's crops yielded but wilt and flies, he watered his fields with his own morning. This seemed to have some effect, since the next year's crops burst forth in verdant rows and spiraling vines. Carrots the size of stalactites, and a spreading strawberry vine thick around as a man's wrist. Potatoes as large as cannon shot. Pumpkins fit for armchairs. Peter Vroman laughed a mighty roar, and his tears, this time of joy, were so voluminous as to carve a stream between his property and the neighbor's. The neighbor's sheep took to drinking from this stream. In the next season, they birthed lambs larger than themselves. Ah, now look at what you've done, mourned Farmer Ten Eyck, who had 8 mouths to supply besides those of his livestock. How am I to feed such lambs? These beasts will starve us out. Vroman generously offered to take the lambs off Ten Eyck's hands. From that day forward, he and his flock roamed the valley itself as their penning ground, a practice much discouraged by the general populace, as the sheep left droppings nearly as large as themselves. But of such quality, boasted Vroman. He offered to spread his sheep's mighty manure himself, anywhere the other farmers liked, such that their fields would grow as hardy as his. To a man, the farmers declined. They feared their dogs could not herd such huge sheep as might transpire on the strength of Vroman's manure, and their wives fretted over how to even cook a turnip as large as a child. Why, said Mistress Ten Eyck, I'd need a two-hand saw to slice the thing. The Mohawk people of the Flint, situated south across the creek, accepted such offerings of hides and saw blades as Vroman paid them in land lease, though they threw beans for the task of testing those items, because you could never be too careful with a trickster. The sweethearts Vroman pursued demurred him. Young Constance Blenheim said, I don't fancy kissing a man if I need a ladder to do it. He took this in stride. He offered to be of service in other ways, such as securing them proper suitors. He was slated to watch Heinrich Jürgen's flock one night, so that the farmer and his intended could attend a husking bee in the village. But he mistook the Jürgen cottage's thatch for a straw-filled mattress, and sat on the house, crushing it to kindling. When the third unmarried Ten Eyck daughter bemoaned her status and begged the Lord for a man to catch, Vroman took her at her word. He flung his shepherd's crook wide and hooked 5 boys in a row from Main Street as they went about their business. Farmer Ten Eyck arrived back from the fields to find his daughter thus beset and was fit to be pickled. It came to be hop gathering season, and Vroman took to the fields with the rest of the neighborhood. His hop dog's hook was 1/2 mile wide and its teeth long as a man's leg. When he swung it, all the other gatherers ducked. He swung it the other way, and a wind came up, strong enough to shake all the buds from their stalks. They rose in a great tornado, churned by Vroman's enthusiastic hop-dogging, and the village cried out in one voice against the loss of their harvest. There they go, shouted one, pointing to the tornado as it raged over the plain, and another, Curse you, Vroman, what shall we drink this winter? They cowered more than ever when the tornado returned, a swirling green vortex 3 times the height even of its creator. And moving across the Schoharie Creek, it had sucked up all the water. By the time it verged on the village, the hops and creek water had fermented into beer. Being so tall, Vroman had the advantage of seeing the tornado for what it was. He took a beer barrel in either hand and held them at the ready, and the tornado collapsed its form straight into the kegs. Now then, boomed Vroman, the drinks are on me. But the hop gatherers would have none of it. The devil's own brew, that will be, one vowed. Will you plant our next season's crop, Farmer Vroman? You owe us that much. At this final slight, Vroman had drunk his fill of the villagers. A provincial and superstitious bunch they were, and he would have no more to do with them. In one hand he took hold of his hop-dog, and in the other his shepherd's crook, and together he shot them skyward, piercing the clouds and the very veil of heaven, until the cloud's moisture, agitated by Vroman's wild waving, grew furious. They coalesced and chilled to an icy ire, and descended on earth as a mighty storm. This was the great blizzard of '88. For long hours the snow fell and winds whirled, and across New York State the drifts piled high and bodies higher. By some accounts, white walls climbed highest near Saratoga Springs, some 50 miles north of the capital. But all Middleburg knows that for every inch that venerable battlefield received, their village was proffered 2 more. When the wind stopped, the people went about removing snow from its steep banks, unearthing houses, blasted fields, and perished livestock. "Where's Peter Vroman now?" they cried over their shovels, "for his mighty arm and long legs should be of great service." But the giant was nowhere to be found. The hills were silent in their snow-clad majesty, no verse of his ribald songs echoing through the valley. The countryside was an impassive moonscape of blank white, no mammoth footprints marking the passage of Roman and his flock. The villagers returned to their toil, but soon sank into exhaustion, declaring they would leave the rest of the work to the sun. The snow began to melt some days later, but toward the south, at the gateway to the Catskill Mountains, a great mound remained crystalline. It rose from the hook of the Schoharie Creek where none could recall a hill having been. It stayed implacably frozen until May, and when the scales of ice finally fell, a mighty profile jutted into the sky. "Look," called small Johann ten Eyck. "There he is! It is Peter Vroman." The adults about laughed uncomfortably, but they admitted to themselves later, behind closed doors, that the newborn hill's outline did resemble Peter Vroman's. Aquiline, high of brow, proud of nose. Nearly as startling were the rock formations littered about the hill's ascent, the droppings of Vroman's flock, forever frozen into shale pilings. When a few hardy investigators moved among the heaps, they reported faint waftings of manure. When they scaled the hill's summit, a sudden breeze of early spring sweetness nearly blew Carl Bernheid off the ledge. "But never you mind," said small Johann ten Eyck's grandmother to him and the seven siblings as they were tucked to bed that night. "There, 'tis naught but proof that Peter Vroman still breathes. Asleep beneath the soil, he may yet awake." All that spring and summer, the village held its own breath, casting glances toward the creek, should they turn and find the newborn hill suddenly gone, its sleeping giant awoken. But as August slipped away and the broom corn was gathered, by and large the people grew accustomed to their valley's new skyline. Nestled among the old foothills, it seemed that Roman had always slept beneath their soil. When a series of whorls carved deep into rock were discovered some leagues away, it was said Roman's flock had made the indentations, leaping after their master. When a rare earth-shaking occurred on All Souls' Day, it was known that Roman had turned over in his sleep to get a more comfortable position. By and by, it became custom for sweethearts to picnic among the flock's manure piles, and for bands of village girls to frolic at Twelfth Night on the flat dance floor of the hill's height. When the railroad came, only the oldest citizens remembered a time when the Schoharie Creek's elbow had not cupped a curiously prominent hill, and the youngest laughed to think a man lay beneath their feet. But should you chance to go reeling across the summit some frosty midwinter evening, step your prettiest, for you are treading on Roman's nose. And that is the story of Roman's nose, as far as I can tell. The second story I have is more of a fairy tale. It's also inspired somewhat by the Welsh Christmas horse, the horse skull, and the mumming tradition called the Mari Lwyd, but transplanted to South Florida. And it does have maybe somewhat of a content warning. There's a non-graphic description of a horse being butchered. It's not super gory, but it might bother some folks who are animal enthusiasts. So this is Christmas at Santa Casilda. It is set in the world of my novella from Queen of Swords, Little Nothing, but you don't really need to know anything about that other than that there is a weird kind of horse around, and we'll meet one presently. Do you know, then, the story of Catalina and the Trapper? This being the time of Old Florida, Spanish Florida, and Florida of the Tequesta, the town was yet called Santa Casilda. It was said when the conquistadors had pushed up the river of grass and found higher ground, The sandy islands welcomed them with spontaneous blooms of painted leaf and firebush, a miracle of roses in this winter season. They built a church and left a priest, and set off again much invigorated, before meeting deaths befitting men of the sword. And Santa Casilda throve steadily for some years, accreting a polyglot of buccaneers, native traders, deserting soldiers, free Africans, until sometime in 1680 a young woman arrived. Catalina had, by her own admission, not fled the burning of St. Augustine ahead of the French barbarians, but been put ashore the year before from the Sea Holly, a Bermuda sloop whose letters of marque had been revoked and whose crew were cutting their losses. She made known with some pride that the Sea Holly's men had whispered dark things of her, that she had been responsible for the governor's revocation, a freak hurricane, and some seamen's deaths besides. Nevertheless, her beauty and wit, never mind her deftness with skillet, needle, and knife, quickly made her a sought-after prize to the many village bachelors. Rejecting one and all, declaring she would never wed, she instead made herself indispensable to the local priest, and delivered most of the year's babies without incident or whisper of witchcraft. As time went on, people began to forget that Catalina was not native to Santa Casilda, for, with the exception of a few decades of babies and a scattering of Tequesta, no one was. Nestled in the fecund delta of Lake Okeechobee, a brisk traffic sprang up. Men who blended native dugouts with Carib Parawa and used the boats to slip silently along the region's many vein-like waterways began to be called trappers, for their habit of taking anything that happened across their path. Turtle and shark, mermaids' purses, conchs, cattle, lime runners, people. If it could be snatched up and exchanged for something equal or greater, a trapper was interested. Nor were their appetites solely avaricious, for through their machinations many goods came into the town that otherwise would have eluded it, and their bateaux squired many runaways to secret places beyond the slaver's grasp, provided someone had the coin to make it so. Catalina often had the coin. She had no great love for French, Spanish, British, or otherwise, and thought it a lark to aid African and native people on their flight from captivity or conversion. Yet some saw beneath her laughing eyes and wide, creased smile a dark glint that hinted at an untamed hunger, a vengeful desire, a spirit that would not rest. As it happens with men of this type, a particular trapper emerged, not as leader, for those men swore allegiance to none and took orders from fewer, but as a paragon, a trapper among trappers. Evan Rowland, it was said, had outswum a crocodile through the mangroves and taken its teeth for his beard ornamentation. His bateau was the largest on the Sanctus River, and yet the most elusive. He stood 6 foot and 7 inches, only an inch or so of it wild and curling red hair. He held all of southern Florida in his palm and wanted for nothing, save a wife. Naturally, his eye fell on Catalina. She was young and beautiful, her hair like midnight and her eyes brighter than 1,000 stars. She could cook and mend and doctor, and she had no one to speak for her. It was beyond Evan Rowland's ken that she might object. But all Santa Casilda heard of her cutting speech, in which she undressed the trapper for the village to see and left his drawers flapping in the wind. What could he offer, after all, that she did not already have? This speech had the opposite of Catalina's intended effect, and inflamed Evan Rowland's desire. After all, he reasoned back to her hastening skirts, a trapper gave no value to that which walked willingly into his net. He pursued her as diligently as an acolyte learning scripture, offering tortoiseshell combs for her hair and a new gown of finest Valencian silk, promising to assassinate her nemesis with a dart dipped in lime runner venom. He poled his boat beside her as she walked to the river to wash the priest's vestments, crooning Welsh ballads and tossing scarlet hibiscus to shore. He swore her the most gorgeous wedding a woman could wish for, a feast to rival the feast of Christmas, fast approaching. After a week and more of such overtures, Catalina relented and agreed to visit the trapper's camp. To see if she could make it habitable, she told him, to assess how much labor she would take on as his bride. On the appointed day, as she approached the cypress snarl in which she'd been told the trappers made their lair, a strange woman intercepted her. She was dressed as the Tequesta women did, in a skirt of milkweed fibers and a sweep of bright French broadcloth over her shoulder. She was the tallest woman Catalina had ever seen, and she motioned silently, her hand a stiletto slash in the afternoon sun. She led Catalina to a palmetto thicket and whispered, "Watch." The two women crouched in the thicket, and soon enough men appeared at the encampment, going about the business of men, pissing, fire-making, ribbing and eating and spitting and scratching. Evan Roland was among them. His voice grew louder and bawdier as the afternoon wore on, and soon enough he called for the day's catch, a lime runner they lassoed in the river shallows. Catalina flinched to see the greed and glee with which he butchered the water horse. In the space of an hour it was reduced to its parts, the meat strung on skewers, and the hide stretched between two lean pines. Evan Roland wrenched the skull free of its skeleton with enough force to send a tooth flying. It vanished into the thicket, and Catalina picked it up. She held the lime runner's front fang carefully but firmly, imagining the sound it would make sinking into Evan Roland's eye. As the sun set, Roland abandoned his task and paced. He spat into the fire and cursed Catalina's name for a liar, swearing he would drag her from the church if needs must. The Tequesta woman gripped Catalina's arm and whispered, "Flee." Catalina did not like to move through dense jungle at nightfall, but it seemed to her that the water horse's tooth in her hand acted as a compass. It weighed more than it should, she thought. It towed her across paths her eyes could not detect. Indeed, it cast a wan light, sufficient to light her way in a darkness whose moon had not yet risen. It led her not to the church, where she slept in a small room next to the infirmary, but to the village tavern. Among the crowd carousing in celebration of the Christ child's imminent arrival, she melted away, the fang clutched tight within her apron pocket. Presently the trappers arrived. At their head was Evan Roland, dressed in the merrymaking costume of his Welsh countrymen, a white sheet wrapped over his body, and the new butchered skull poised atop his head. Jaunty red ribbons wove through the skull's gaps, and a string of bells laced around the apparition's shoulders. One of the trappers saw Catalina and whispered to the skull, which wagged from side to side, as though its naked eye sockets sought her. It joggled up and down as he pantomimed a gallop through the tavern, making straight for her. Catalina held out an arm, stiff and straight. Before he could reach for her from beneath his sheet, before he could manipulate that glaring skull to snap its jaws at her, she demanded a bet at the top of her voice. All the tavern stopped their celebrations to listen as Catalina challenged Evan Roland. "I see your skull is missing a tooth," she said haughtily, "one of its most crucial teeth, in fact. If I can deduce the location of your skull's missing fang," she told him and the whole hall, "my hand will remain free of our marriage." The skull nodded vigorously, a chuckle booming from beneath its shroud. So Catalina told the story of the lime runner's butchering, describing the blood and bowels so vividly a few mothers clapped hands over their young's ears. When she came to the moment of the skull's wrenching, she withdrew a hand from her apron pocket and held the missing tooth aloft. As Evan Roland's arm came snaking out from the sheet, she fitted the fang back into its socket with a triumphant cry. At the sound of her shriek, the whisper of the click of its returning tooth, the skull rose from Evan Roland's skull. Before all assembled Santa Casilda, it floated, revolving slowly in the torchlight, and the remainder of its skeleton materialized beneath it, each bone and hoof jointing together in a series of resounding, ominous clicks. Evan Roland flailed, dragging the sheet from his screaming red face in bird's nest curls. When he opened his mouth to shout, the tavern's door blasted open in a rush of night air and galloping, ghostly forms. The lime runner skeleton pranced, wheeling to join its fellows as a whole flood of water horses poured into the room. Their hooves did not touch the floor. Their bodies pierced those of the onlookers, and the largest among them was ridden by a tall woman garbed like the Tequesta. She snatched Evan Roland where he stood and slung him across her mount's withers. And the troop, for this was Auden Nuit's troop, the Night Queen's own herd, galloped through the tavern's walls and into moonless midnight. Not a hair among the villagers was disturbed, nor a drop of their ale spilled. The young ones' eyes were round, their chattering mouths silent. The oldest among them racked their memories for a time when such a thing had occurred, and concluded it was without precedent. After the feasting days of Christmas had finished, Santa Casilda returned to its normal activities. But Catalina's hand remained free of marriage all through her long life. And the life of Evan Roland, it was known, would be longer yet, caught as he was upon Adenuit's eternal corpse road. The end.
Oh my. I have to ask, is Santa Casilda a real place?
It is not. It's kind of a mishmash of a couple of different places near Lake Okeechobee.
Okay. Okay, good. Because the name Casilda, you know, makes me think of the Casilda song anthology.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I was looking for a saint name and thought, how can I make this like kind of extra creepy? Or like,
Yeah.
you know, a little
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
a little
Well
cameo.
accomplished. Yeah, all the nice, happy, bouncy horses, beautiful creatures every little girl loves with the apparently great big fangs and the Queen of the Night. That's I mean, that's something you can keep on loving when you're a grown woman.
Oh, for sure. She's
Yes.
definitely a goddess for all seasons, let's say.
Awesome. Ah, thank you.
Thank you. I
It
love
was nice.
a made-up folk tale, a faux tale, I think people call them, or fake tale, but
And
whatever.
both of these felt like they could be, they had the right feel to them. So that's nicely done. Thank you. So, hmm. It is our way at Story Hour to just take a moment between our two readers to let those first stories just sink in and prepare ourselves for more, maybe with a deep breath. Everyone, that was Dee Holloway. And our next reader tonight is Ash Huang. Ash Huang's fiction appears in Nightmare, Lightspeed, Ecotone, Orion's Belt, and elsewhere. She won the 2022 Diverse Worlds Grant from the Speculative Literature Foundation and is a grateful alum of the Roots, Wounds, Words workshop, the Tin House Winter Workshop and Reading Fellowship, and the Perry Plus Fellowship. She is currently a Lisa Brown and Daniel Handler resident with the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. So, I mean, that's all pretty cool, but wait till you actually meet Ash.
It's okay. Better on paper sometimes.
Oh,
Hi, thank you. I'm excited to be with you all today. I loved Dee's very atmospheric stories. The first story I have for you today is called Safe Face. This was published in Nightmare Magazine. In terms of content, there's a little bit of like self-harm, a little parent-child domestic violence, and some good old-fashioned flesh peeling. So we'll start. Safe face. To save face, turn away from the sun. Turn away from the spatter of cold rain against the cheek, away from the hard light of the moon at its roundest, away from the snow-flecked wind, away from the barky scratch at a fork of an oak. Away with all surprise, the surprise of a sunrise come too soon, the aroma of Auntie's home-cooked stew when you tumble through her front door, the brush of rose petals at your cousin's modest wedding. To save face, run the razor along your hairline, oh so carefully, do not mar the skin. Put the face inside a velvet box with a small gold coin, a coin with its own saved face, embossed and soft and gold, only solid gold. Put the face inside a safe and then another safe to be sure. Scrawl down the combinations and eat the paper that holds them. Insert the scrap through your lipless mouth, your gated teeth, and swallow it down fast. Stack your boxed face on top of your mother's velvet boxed face, your father's, their mothers and fathers, 15 boxes deep. Green, red, black. Shade the boxes from the harsh overhead light so the velvet never fades and you cannot make out the colors. Walk into your living room. Your family awaits. The red muscles and tendons of your faceless mother pull and strain with approval, revealing her teeth. Your fathers do the same, and their mothers and fathers. A relief to finally look like your parents, to be identifiable as theirs. Your fleshy-faced husband stares, but ultimately says nothing. He will remove the bottom half of his own face soon enough, but will insist on keeping the skin over his eyes. Walk into your daughter's room, the walls a perfect gray, every toy on the shelves the perfect gray, the shaggy carpet the same perfect gray, the kickboards and door frames stained gray. It is made imperfect by neon green stuffed frogs and bears tipped onto the floor, by your daughter's tiny teeth marks in the rail of her crib, her attempt at perforating the wood into perfect semicircles. Her perfect cheeks have new marks every morning, no matter how short you cut her nails, no matter how tight the mitten elastics pinch the rolls of her wrists. The light from the window shines right into your lidless eyes, and you cannot blink it out. Move to the right, your head at a strange angle, try to look natural. Pull your tendons into a smile, as you've seen your mother do. Peel your daughter's fingernails from her cheeks, her jaw from the soft pine of the crib rail. She flinches. She doesn't recognize you. She screams and starts to cry, bites the crib as hard as she can. You say, cooing, "Don't cry." And then when she keeps crying, "Don't cry. Don't you dare cry." She hides her own face from you, trembles under a blanket, crying, "Mama, mama, mama." Your boss is afraid of your new faceless face. He mounts a campaign to get you fired. You pit his boss against his boss's boss. They schedule competing meetings and salt your calendar in passive-aggressive invites, escalate reply-all chains, and then your boss is fired. His boss, now your boss, is amenable to your naked, muscular affect, your darting dry stare, and the eye drops you drop every hour on the hour. He's overly cordial, the only sign he is unnerved. Good. You want them all to remain unnerved. Your career depends on it. You rise through the ranks and fire your new boss when you become his boss. You work and work and work, taking calls with Asia at 11 p.m. and Europe at 5 a.m. The skin below your neck erupts in oozing pink rashes all across your body. You spread oily cream on them, steroids next. You wear turtleneck sweaters and expensive golden rings to distract from the pustules. The doctors prescribe new creams and tell you to go home. Your face is already skinless. No one cares what story your body is telling. Your closet shelves fill with Armani, Gucci, Chanel. You buy numerous shoes and store them in their shiny black boxes, a single thumb or index fingerprint always marring their perfect surfaces. Your girl grows taller. She grows a bad temper. When she misbehaves and whines loudly at a mall, you slap her cheek. Just hard enough it grows pink, not hard enough to bruise. In a year, she grows 6 inches and slaps you in return, suddenly, out of nowhere, when you are sorting the mail by the front door. Her mistake. There is no skin to grow pink. You tell her so, and she stomps your foot instead, hard, with all her weight, breaking one of your metatarsals. You take away her computer, her phone. She threatens to throw your silk dresses and scarves out the window, your handbags and kitten heels, her father's crisp suits and delicately patterned pocket squares. You imagine them blowing down the street, expensive and awkward tumbleweeds, cavorting, as if animated, until a wise neighbor captures them in nets, has them dry cleaned, hangs them in their own private closet. You touch your corded cheeks, strum your long fingernails nervously over your naked teeth like a washboard. You install 3 more doors to your closet to put more gates between your safes and your angry daughter, between your vulnerable face and hers. When she is 15, you argue. She insists on wearing pajama pants to school like an urchin and doesn't wear concealer. Her classmates' mothers and fathers surely whisper about your inability to control her, to keep her clean and presentable. You tell her they're whispering about her. You tell her she makes you look bad. Try harder. Right there, at the dinner table, while your husband looks on, she shoves her clammy, girlish hand down your throat. She nearly chokes you, stretches the cartilagined tube of your esophagus, spiders her fingers through the labyrinth of your stomach, finds a balled up wet scrap of paper in an off-cast chamber, the note still marked with old ink. While you kneel and cough, she runs to your bedroom, locks the 4 closet doors behind her. You stare up at the ceiling, following the sound of her thumping footsteps. Rarely used dials click to life. A clinical alignment of tumblers follows, and then a confident latch as steel doors are flung open. You run upstairs. You try to unlock the closet doors with chicken bones and branches, with the expensive clasps of Prada bags and the threads of Hermes scarves. You pound the last door with your fists, hammer it with Jimmy Choo stiletto heels, throw pearls hard enough to shatter against the dark, hard wood. When you open the last door, your daughter hangs half out the single square window, a leg and arm already out. Your heart jumps in anticipation of seeing her dangling like that. Put the face back on, she says, inching farther out, a threat. The face! What a vendetta! She's been harboring it for years. Get inside or else, you say. She examines what's behind you, a wreckage of torn, hand-tooled leather, shattered black pearls, ripped cord, and broken buckles. You prepare to see her go limp, to give up, to slump out the square frame. You prepare to buy her a glossy coffin and cry, to touch her baby pictures until they are worn and lost to time, to fold the cheap clothes she insists on buying into mothballed boxes and turn the room into an altar. You have no face to read, yet she knows what you are thinking. Instead of flinging herself away, she grabs the velvet boxes by the armful and throws them into a Gucci bag. She escapes out the window with all 15 faces. You leave the safe open, empty, a hungry black mouth in your closet. There's nothing to protect anymore. In the weeks that follow, you peruse Saks Fifth Avenue, Barney's, slum it at Nordstrom to pass the time. The flyers appear. Photocopies of your mother's face flattened against glass, your father's, your husband's mother's, his father's. Written below each face is a short epitaph, an accusation, in black Sharpie that's still fresh enough to smell, such as, he beat all 6 children with a military belt. She stole her daughter's social security number to commit credit fraud. He locked his son in the basement for 2 days when he flunked his tests. She drank away the family fortune. He embezzled from the state. You tear down the flyers and look at the striated lines of Xerox ink in your clenched fist. None of them are about you. So she isn't yet serious. Your family complains at every visit, hurtling into your kitchen with their own accusations. You should have taken a knife to her cheek early, locked her in the basement, not let her out on weekends, warned her off boys. None of them deny what she writes. How can they? You tell them, go away. They don't even have your name on them. No one will care about the graffitied manifestos of a teenage girl. 6 years later, the chest pains grip you at your desk, your mouth full of chicken salad. Your right arm goes numb, and you spit out your lunch. Your assistant calls an ambulance, and you are taken to the emergency room. A minor heart attack, too much stress, and not enough exercise. But I'm skinny, you say. The doctors don't comment on your faceless face, but they sigh and type quickly into their computer, hiding the monitor from you so you cannot read their notes. They tell you they'll return shortly, and then change shifts. You wait endlessly and have to tell each new doctor why you don't need to be there. Your husband calls you back finally and tells you he has called the daughter. She is taking a train in to see you. He says he told her not to, that the visit would strain your nerves, and what was the point? It's not like you are dying. The daughter arrives and you barely recognize her. She has become fat, a size 6 or 8. Her visitor's badge displays a childish nickname you didn't give her, so you call her by the name you did. She tenses and grits her teeth. No pine crib bar to bite. A 3-inch scar runs along her ear, a halted seam. She might be beautiful without it, now that she doesn't have pimples, but only if she lost the weight. This is who you raised, a hungry coward who can't finish the job. Pick beauty or pick honor. This in-between state is spineless, you say. She doesn't say anything. just pulls out a green velvet box from her dirty messenger bag. The hinges creak as she opens it. Your face. The eyebrow hairs still pinioning the skin, the lips still moist and wrinkled with your ideal shade of red. Didn't want to make ugly posters like you did for all the rest, you ask? You won't live forever, she says. Is this how you want to spend your life? Don't you miss the sting of a sunburn, the cold of the rain? Don't you miss the surprise of a sunrise come too soon, the aroma of Auntie's home-cooked stew? Do you think you are poetic, you ask? She shuts the box and tosses it at the foot of your bed. She takes a photo and turns the phone to face you. You are alone in the frame, your expression a permanent grin, ghastly over the white of your bleached hospital gown. The flyers about you appear the next day after you are discharged. You walk to the train, intent on going straight back to the office, and see the pink copy paper stapled crookedly to telephone poles, stark on the tiny roofed bulletin boards your quaint little town is partial to. Instead of scanned images of your off-cast face, they are old photos when you still wore it, smiling in front of a food stall or gathered at a restaurant surrounded by your faceless family, getting married to your husband in a cheap polyester dress on a winter evening on the shortest day of the year, perched in profile, intent on some schoolwork, a pencil hovering over the notebook you agonize over. Below each picture, in small cursive letters only, I wish I knew how to love her. I wish she knew how to love me. You walk back to your car and get in. You turn off the radio, cutting off the stream of classical music mid-cello. You pull the velvet box out of your Birkin bag and open it. The face is flat and lifeless inside, the skin still warm. You hold the face up like a sheet mask. It feels like thin rubber, restrictive and unfamiliar. How did you ever breathe in this, eat, or focus on anything else? You think of the wrinkles that come with it, the tired eyes, the sagging cheeks you work so diligently to avoid, the wagging waddle. You touch the skin to your right cheek, experimentally. It instantly begins to adhere to your dried out tendons, pulling out of your hands like it's being zipped up. It burns worse than anything you've ever known. The morning sun rises just so, enough to shoot hot through your windshield. You move your head to the right on instinct to keep the light out of your eyes, but you also blink. The relief, the flitting dark, the involuntary tears that finally hydrate your waterless eyes. You close them completely to keep the light out. That was the first story. Um, so the second story is called A Superior Knot. It was in Lightspeed magazine. This one, it doesn't really have content for any that I know of, but it is a dual perspective piece, so I hope you'll bear with me, try to follow the two perspectives. And this is also a condensed version. I don't know if I said that. A Superior Knot. Do it. The last word she spoke before we cinched the green ribbon around her neck, a stark line bisecting her head from her body, a scrap we'd buried to gather magic under the mother tree. We tied the final knot. She took up her sword, a girl become death, determined enough to have a stone pillar with one quivering swing of the arm. We quorum of kings lauded her might, draped her in speckled furs and heavy golden chains, pushed upon her platters of game birds and goblets overfull with strong wine and white spirits. We quorum of kings caused and lauded her silence, knowing the ribbon would permit material treasures to pass, but choke any words that would fall from her lips. We quorum of kings dote on our cormorant night quip, she is hungry for words, like for fish in the sea. She will silence our enemies, our quarry, spilling their blood across our finely soled feet like barrels of brilliant sardines. She serves us. We chose her. She does not touch the ribbon. It gleams below her chin. I was only a boy when I knew her, a nameless girl winding through nameless alleys, always singing, cheeks already lined from smiling. The adults decried her constant chirping, her treaclish affect too sweet to bear. Sweet girls go brittle when fed through the gears of our time, burn up like crackling caramel. We need tough women, women who bend over backwards and do not break. Or so it is said. They put a knife in her hands, sent her to our kings, said, do not return without a ribbon. If you see her coming, do not waste time squinting into the sun. Do not wonder if she is a mirage or a speck of pollen. Do not debate backing for 1 day or 5. If you see her coming, gather up the children, the chickens, the terriers, flee straight into the trees, crash through the underbrush, ignore the thorns as they stripe your legs in blood. If you see her coming, it is too late. Do not fear her blade. She is not cruel. It will be quick. She is not much for smiling, though we appreciate her silence. Of course we do. That is why we tied the ribbon at all. We have many green ribbons. You send us many desperate girls. We tie them to feet and hands and fingers, and even lovely knees. Any girlish part we like. If you see her coming, kiss the soft ground and revel in the mud that pulls her boots. Thank the chill that pimples her skin. Pray to the poorly stuffed mattress she slept on last night. If you see her coming, take all the time you need to arrange your loved ones, bundle them in blankets, pile sacks of millet in the cart, pile your winter stock of round brown potatoes, water the horses before you go, nearly forget and then find your box of treasures, your late grandmother's amethyst amulets. She will take her time approaching. It matters not how the house was emptied. It need not be by her hand. We have no further use for ribbons, for the magic of the mother tree. The nation is ours. We quorum of kings want dominion, peace, and we spend our days galloping through our expansive private forests, felling stags and boars and chasing a golden dragon. I was a man when she arrived at my village, the tip of her sword etching a sharp line through the dirt as she dragged it behind her. Everyone else had already fled, and I thought she would know me, remember our joyful rambles through the steep streets of our childhood. She found me in my barn. She knocked the basket from my hands, sent metal tools skidding across the dirt floor. I fell to the ground, curled into a ball, shaking, thinking, she no longer knows me. She raised her sword above her head. The marbled surface of the folded steel caught the light, a sliver of white in the dim. I thought my death would be quick. Instead, she lowered her arm. For a moment, I saw the girl she once was, a girl open to surprise and the whims of fate. She sheathed the sword, offered me a hand. When I see her coming, I draw a hot bath of milk and rose petals. I slide the shirt from her shoulders and launder it in clean river water. I chatter on about the warm weather and the summer flowers bursting across our fields, the condition of our flock, and whether our sheepdog has come home. I am as joyful as she used to be as a girl. She touches the ribbon at her neck, hesitates. She wants to ask me something, but cannot. Instead, she watches the clouds move in surging shapes. Her back is turned to me, her hair swept to one side, the ribbon dark against her skin. I examine the knot hastily tied by our quorum of kings. The long left leg of it lists downward, conceals the symmetrical ridges of her spine. Our quorum of kings was always too ruthless for beautiful satin bows. The art of swooping ribbon is better left to men like me. I touch it. She lets me. It is scratchier than expected, ends threadbare. It comes undone with one tug, spirals off her shoulder, flutters toward the grass. She leaps to her feet and stumbles, then goes to her hands and knees to chase the ribbon as it curls away on the wind, her sword left among the daisies, her white clothes wrinkled beneath the scabbard, her belt a careless coil, her bare feet slick against the hillside. I join the chase, grabbing at air, mud, vegetation. I pull fistfuls of summer-dry weeds and scatter them behind me in celebration. It's the closest I've had to a hunt, a fine pursuit through an empty meadow. The ribbon tangles in a blueberry bush, only the ends left free to struggle, animated by the treacherous wind. I pick up the ribbon. It weighs nothing, a scrap of fabric tossed by a breeze. I wrap it around my palm. It will not escape again. I could keep it, but no. I will not take her power, cause her trouble with our kings, will not deny her the speckled furs and heavy gold chains, the platters of game birds and strong, rich wine. I am proud, but I will pretend I am sheepish and coy. I present the ribbon like a piece of fine fruit, straightening its shimmering length to loop clean around her neck. Already I can feel the pleats of my superior knot, the one taught to me by kinder grandfathers and fathers and uncles, men too gentle to rule or to quorum, too gentle to demand blood spilled in their names. I come closer with the ribbon. She backs away, eyes wet and furious. She levels a hand between us, fingertips trembling like a harp string. She says the first word she's spoken for 20 years. Don't. That's the end. Thank you.
I did love that story when I read it originally in Lightspeed, and it's even better heard out loud.
Thank you,
It's
Dee.
fantastic.
Wow, Daniel.
Yeah.
I was thinking we'd have some kind of spooky stories tonight, like the Victorians used to tell spooky stories in this season. But I didn't expect them to feel so mythic. Everything tonight felt,
A little larger than life for sure.
yeah, felt like a fable or a folk tale.
Hmm.
All those deep, deep wells within them. Ah, ah, that was, thank you. Thank you. Well, we have one more story hour this year. And then because of the way the holidays are falling, Daniel and I will be taking a little time off. So next week, our readers are Tim Melody Pratt, sorry, Tim, Melody, and Heather Shaw, who've come back the last several holidays to read us something Christmassy, but not necessarily Hallmark Christmassy, a little bit
Definitely
creepy
not Hallmark Christmas.
Christmassy. Yeah, some poignant Christmassy, but different angles on the holiday. And but it's still a good idea to always check storyhour2020.com because that's not only where we keep the calendar of upcoming readers, but also links to past story hours. So you can just sit there and gorge yourself on stories all through the few weeks that we're apart. And that's pretty much it for tonight. I think we've had some pretty impressive stories that I want to think about some more. Dee Holloway, Ash Huang, thank you so much for sharing these stories with us tonight. Thank you also to Sifwa for the grant that keeps the lights on, and to Daniel Marcus, without whom there would be no Zoom room to light. And thank you, all of you, whether you're here right now, whether you're watching at some point in the future, because as long as you watch and you enjoy these stories, we're all in the same story hour together. Good night.